Hello, I'm Joy. I'm part of the 50 Plus Forum. You're going to see a video today about the work we do in the protection of vulnerable adults. We've been going out to peer groups to explain to them what is abuse, how to recognise it, how to tackle it, and who to ask for advice. After you've seen the video, you will see a number of useful addresses and telephone numbers and people whom you can contact if you feel you are suffering from abuse or you know of anybody else who is.
Hello everyone, my name's Alison. I'm here today to support Ralph and Yvonne. They're going to be doing a talk on protection of vulnerable adults and abuse. We all know this is a very sensitive subject. If anybody needs to talk to me about anything specific, I will be around about 30 minutes after the presentation for people to come to me and speak. So Ralph, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So hopefully by the end of this session you'll understand more about how to recognise abuse, and then particularly if you see abuse, if you experience abuse, you'll know what to do about it. So the first question for you, what at this particular juncture would you think of was abusive?
What about somebody hitting somebody?
Yes.
I think it could very well be financial abuse within the family.
Yes, very good. Hopefully by the time we get to the end of this presentation you'll think there is something you can do about it. What we've defined here as being abuse is when a person does or says something to someone that hurts them. It upsets them, makes them feel frightened, and it doesn't have to be physical. As I say, it can be something that somebody says to you that you feel, ooh, don't like that. That's abusive. So remember that as we go through it. It's not just necessarily you that's experiencing the abuse. You might be looking out the window and see something happening to your neighbour. You might be talking to your neighbour and they might say something that you think, well, hang on, that doesn't sound right. You may feel scared, and because you're feeling scared, you might be frightened to speak out about it. You don't know what to do about it. What shall I do? Shall I keep quiet because it's a member of the family? I don't want to upset them or other members of the family. And you may not know who to talk to in those kind of circumstances. So, what do you think are the different types of abuse? What is physical abuse?
Physical abuse is when somebody pushes you or pulls your hair or says, come here, you have to do this now, walk a bit faster, you're a bit slow, you know, and treats you like you're a bit of a nuisance, you know.
What is emotional abuse? Have you any ideas of what might represent emotional abuse?
Well, I did have quite a bad experience when I was visiting an elderly relative in a residential care home, and she was quite upset that the clothes that she was dressed in the morning by the carer did not belong to her, and she was really upset with it.
I mean, would you say that physical abuse can then make or a knock-on effect, and it becomes then emotional because if somebody's been physically abused, then, like you say, walk quicker, then they will think, oh, I'm not worth a lot, and that sort of thing.
There is nothing you can do. I think that's the biggest emotional effect.
If you feel that you can't do anything about it, but hopefully we'll give you some options of things that you could do about it. These are some examples of what we think could be put down to emotional abuse. Someone's bullying you, or you observe somebody else being bullied, calling people names, making fun of somebody, treating you like a child, just simply ignoring people, blaming somebody for something they haven't done, stopping them making their own choices. So these are all things that if they're happening to you, or if you observe them happening to somebody else, you might seriously think about, could I do something to prevent that? What is sexual abuse?
Sexual abuse, yeah. This is something everyone's frightened to talk about, yeah. It's something that somebody does to you without you wanting them to do it, and it could be put on you in such a way that you perhaps you'd think, oh, it's not happening. And it is. And you don't have to put up with it.
What might constitute sexual abuse is if they're trying to make you touch them, if they're making inappropriate sexual comments, or if they want to show you inappropriate pictures, or say, hey, come and watch this DVD. Anything like that, that is abusive. You should not have to tolerate it. We'll come next to financial abuse. Anybody else think of what might constitute financial abuse?
Well, I know someone who signed some documents. She didn't know really what she was signing, but it was her grandson asked her to sign, and she just did it. And it worked out that he took out a loan in her name, defaulted on the loan. Of course, they came to her for the money. It caused her a lot of distress. Not just she was upset about her grandson, she now doesn't really trust anybody in her family, let alone anybody outside. So that's got a long-lasting effect for her.
And so there again, you have a mixture of financial and emotional abuse. It's very upsetting. So here are some of the examples that we've put together. Someone stealing your money, someone stealing your belongings, someone forcing you to pay for things for other people, someone controlling your money and you're not happy about the way they're controlling it. But there are things that you can do about it if you're prepared to. What is neglect? What do you think might be abusive in the sense of neglecting?
Someone being deprived of food, or someone being made to wait to go to the toilet when they're in hospital.
Medication, maybe somebody wouldn't receive their medication, or maybe the wrong medication.
I know of an example where a carer was supposed to come in the morning and give an hour's caring service to an old lady, hasn't changed the bed which is soiled, hasn't emptied the commode, hasn't made much of a breakfast, hasn't done any of the washing up, so she's been there barely half an hour of the hour that she was supposed to be there. So who do you think might actually abuse you?
Anybody, whether you're at home or elsewhere.
Statistics show very likely it's actually going to be someone in your own family, and that can be extremely difficult to deal with. It may be a friend, someone you know. Who might be causing the abuse? Where might the abuse happen? Well, we've got a list of examples here where it might happen. That's either in your own home or perhaps in a care home, at a doctor's or in a hospital, on public transport, when you're at work, day services, clubs, leisure centre, any places you might go, you could be subject to abuse.
It doesn't have to be in any institution, it could be in your own home. Most of it does have to be in your own home.
But this is not just about being aware of what's happening to you. It's also about being sufficiently aware of abuse to say, hey, that shouldn't be happening to that individual, my next door neighbour, or whatever it might be.
I think sometimes as well people don't realise that they're being abused. They think they've got to accept the situation.
We are vulnerable because we are frightened to say something.
But if you don't like it, then you don't have to put up with it. You're going to have to tell somebody. Who do you think you would tell if you were being subject to abuse?
Well, I think one of the things that puts people off is retaliation if they think they're being abused themselves. So I think they'd have concerns then.
Would it be frightened that they might actually end up worse off?
Yes, especially if they're still living in their own house.
If it's somebody in your family that's abusing you, you might go to another family member, but you might not want to do that. You might want to go to somebody independent. You might want to go to social services. You might think it's serious enough that you go to the police. If you're in a care home, you might talk to a member of staff or another carer, a social worker or an advocate. Or indeed you might go to the POVA services themselves and tell them what's happening to you and ask them if they can do something about it. If you tell a professional, they will do something about it. They'll listen to you, they'll take what you say seriously. They will help the abused person, which might be you, but it might be your neighbour or somebody else that you've seen that you think is being abused. They'll report and share the information with people who can actually help and stop the abuse. They will do their best to try and help you resolve that situation. And just to close, we have a number of important numbers that you can call, people that you can approach to help you resolve a situation which you believe to be abusive. Has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask?
If I was to make a report because I got some suspicion, have I got to give my name?
You haven't got to give your name. It is possible simply to report a concern, but probably the best thing to do is report it to the appropriate people that you think could deal with the situation and discuss with them whether you should let your name go forward or not.
Now that you've seen the video, you might wish to contact some people for advice. Here are some useful numbers.